We're live. Welcome to a live edition of Pod by the Bay. I'm Seth Varnadore, joined by Robert Steeg. Um, we are Pod by the Bay is typically brought to you by Home Field Apparel. We will not, since we're live, we will not have the link for you in the description here. But if you're listening to this later, you should have links to our affiliate link in the description, or you can use our code BA15 for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. In the March madness of it all, they've got a bunch of great stuff. They're putting out new stuff seemingly daily, and they've got a great selection of USF stuff. And Steeg, we're here to talk a little USF basketball. Now, one of the names that had been thrown around for a few jobs is who USF ends up hiring. Rumors were going around of different names that are out there, and you'd hear things, and USF ends up hiring Bryan Hodgson from Arkansas State, back-to-back 20-game winner, formerly an assistant under Nate Oates at Alabama. Some of that style of play that you'd expect has carried over, it looks like, to how he plays. There was a couple of things I thought were interesting in their kind of stat profile, which we'll get to here in a little bit, looking at how Arkansas State played. But just this is one we were talking about it. You said this guy was kind of on your radar, but it certainly seemed like UNLV had locked him up. So that it would, and I believe there's something came out even as of tonight.
Yes.
About that. Do you have that? Handy still?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I don't, because I've been furiously Googling other things, but I have it here. Pete Nakos tweeted. So Pete Nakos originally tweeted about 6 hours ago, Arkansas State's Bryan Hodgson has emerged as a top target at UNLV, and a deal is expected to come together, a source told On3. And then less than 6 hours later, it says USF has hired Arkansas's Bryan Hodgson, sources tell On3. UNLV was in the final steps of hiring Hodgson, with plans for an announcement tonight or tomorrow, and a big donor gathering was already in the works. But USF put a more compelling offer at the table, which we can kind of assume is that 6-year window that was offered to him. So I'd imagine, UNLV probably put together a pretty good offer, but to get more guaranteed money in the future, USF does have the cash to spend in these types of situations. And I think overall, we won't know what that offer looked like. We'll just get the preliminary things that USF always sends us when we FOIA the contract. But I would imagine there's some additional things in there that helped sweeten the deal for him.
Well, he may have also heard UNLV's AD say that he didn't have the money to pay Dan Mullen's contract in the future. So that he was going to have to figure out how to raise that money. So maybe that gave him some pause too. It's never great when you haven't quite figured out how you're going to pay the football coach, being the basketball coach. Even in a place like UNLV, which has obviously some basketball tradition there, and it even has a nice recent run of success. Interesting that you kind of go in and were able to kind of swoop them away seemingly at the last minute. And this was a deal and a negotiation that did have somewhat of a ticking clock element to it, not just because there was some competition for Hodgson, but also he's recently signed, I don't know recently, but I believe this year he signed an extension at Arkansas State, but the buyout increases in April, I think, to match that extension. So if you get him signed before April 1st, which I would imagine is already done. I think I would imagine the ink is dry because the USF House account has tweeted out the hire. I don't think they would do that without the contract totally done. But so there was kind of a ticking clock element here too, not just the competition, but you're able to get him before his kind of buyout kicks up another notch on April 1st. So he's a guy that earned an extension at Arkansas State. They probably thought, you know what, this is a guy that's not going to be long for us, so let's give him an extension, but also let's protect ourselves with an increased buyout. But it wasn't meant to be for old Arkansas State.
Yeah, unfortunately, part of me always feels a little slimy because whenever these hirings happen, I usually go through and read their old interviews and everything like that, and like, dude really actually like kind of fit the bill in Jonesboro as far as community from his upbringing, which we'll go into here in a little bit. But like, part of me sometimes feels slimy when this happens, but then I realize it's a business and I don't really give a shit at that point. I'm very happy with this.
Well, it seems as if, and I'm going to read the Arkansas State put out a statement at 7:21. I'm not sure when, if that's right before or after any of these tweets came out, but they put this statement up on their website at 7:21. It's the Arkansas State Athletics statement regarding its head men's basketball coach position. So a lot of times you see these and you'll hear some sour grapes. But I do want to read this because I think it does give some good context to who USF's hiring, maybe a look at kind of how he interacts with people in the administration, all that kind of stuff. So this is their statement. We want to thank Bryan Hodgson for everything he's done the last 2 years to elevate our men's basketball program here at Arkansas State, said Arkansas State Vice Chancellor for Intercollegiate Athletics, Jeff Purington. We've enjoyed a great amount of success the last 2 years, including a Sun Belt Conference regular season title, school record 25 wins, and an appearance in the NIT this year. Does that sound familiar? Those achievements are a testament to the hard work. That part was I added the does that sound familiar part. Those achievements are a testament to the hard work by both our student athletes and coaching staff. We've seen our home attendance and brand grow exponentially. So there's a tremendous amount of excitement surrounding our program, blah, blah, national search, all that. But I thought just the fact that we're sorry, Banana Man. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Banana Man.
You got Dan Mullen. That'll be fun. I think that'll be fun. But yeah, sorry to the UNLV Banana Man. But I thought that was like we said. Sometimes you see sour grapes in these statements. That seemed to be a kind of a ringing endorsement of Bryan Hodgson, what he's done there. And it seems, I don't know, it really, I think there's and why I said, does this sound familiar? There seems to be some parallel between his last year at Arkansas State and USF's performance in 2024, right? Set the school record for wins, win a conference title, losing their conference tournament, so you got to play in the NIT.
Yeah, a lot of similarities, I will say, between the resumes, at least from the most recent year. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different situation with the coaching tree that he came from. Obviously, Amir on the Tom Crean coaching tree, and then Bryan Hodgson's from the Nate Oates coaching tree.
Which is an interesting one to be from. I did want to also show this at the top.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just before we get away from too much Arkansas State, what a logo here on the jacket.
Oh yeah,
is that a dunking red wolf?
We got to get a dunking Rocky, like a legit.
Well, we don't want to get cease and desist.
Well,
we had some idea. The royal way.
Yeah.
The royal way. Yeah, we tried a dunking rock. We don't want to get cease and desist again. All right. So any before we get more into kind of the stat side here, Steve, any kind of final thoughts? I know you kind of looked into his personal background. Anything that really sticks out to you there? I believe he's from New York originally.
Yeah. Yeah, a very interesting life story. His Wikipedia article for his early life section is far longer than most head coaches are. He was born in 1987 to a teenage mother. After his mother's boyfriend placed him on top of a wood stove when he was only a year old, Hodgson was then placed in foster care. He was adopted and then moved into, just becoming more of a member of the community. And in fact, that's been kind of like his big thing. In fact, if you go to coachhodgson.com, He's big into Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, and being very charitable and connecting with the community, which I think, if you were going to look down the checkbox of things that you were looking for in USF's next head coach, everyone was going to look at head coaching experience and recruiting profile and X's and O's and blah 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 blah. But to me, the top thing is getting a guy who knows how to integrate into the community and understand the importance of that factor. Because Amir did that, and that was his big drive. Was, we'll put the effort in on the court, but we need the community around us to also come in and support us. And so I think that's fantastic. He's worked his way up from the JUCO ranks all the way up to the MAC, and then at Alabama, and then took the head coaching. So he's got that natural progression you were looking for, climbing the ladder to where he is at now today, at USF. So all in all, background-wise, fits the bill completely. I mean, you couldn't have found a better, probably, human being to lead this program, especially in the wake of what else happened.
Yeah, he began his career. So his bio, he began his coaching career at Fredonia State, which sounds like something out of a cartoon. But then caught on. It wasn't just Oates at Alabama. He was also with him at Buffalo, like you mentioned, the MAC. So he was with him for a while. Western New York native, and you mentioned some of the other stuff, kind of about his personal life. But some of his accolades, and so USF has put up kind of a little piece on him within the last half hour or so. I could read Michael Kelly's statement. Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
We are thrilled to welcome Bryan Hodgson as the next head coach of USF men's basketball. Bryan has been part of winning programs at every level, demonstrating a remarkable ability to recruit top talent, develop players, and build championship caliber teams. His passion, energy, and vision for USF basketball align perfectly with our commitment to excellence. We believe he is the right leader to take this program to new heights, and we can't wait to see his impact on our student athletes in the Tampa Bay community. Hodgson says, I'm incredibly honored and excited to be the head coach at the University of South Florida. From my first conversation with Michael Kelly and the USF leadership, it was clear that this place is strongly committed to building a winning culture. We are Tampa Bay's home for hoops, and I can't wait to work with our student athlete staff and the passionate Bulls fan base, including the SoFlo Rodeo! We will play with energy, toughness, and a relentless drive to compete at the highest level. I can't wait to get started. So, great stuff. Some of his accolades that I mentioned previously. His recruiting has been a big one.
Yeah.
Has been a big spot for him. Was previously at 24/7 Sports ranked him the number 2 recruit in the country at one point. He was in 2016. He was in the Under Armour 30 under 30 for assistant coaches. He was in the Athletics top 25 up and coming coaches, one of the 50 most impactful high major assistant coaches by the Athletics. So, good resume. I think on paper seems like a really good hire. Not somebody that was kind of I think the UNLV stuff where it seemed like it was pretty much a done deal, maybe kept his name from getting blown up a little bit more. Yeah, he seemed great. He seemed to know all the buzzwords already. He was
They gave him the cheat sheet. Like, let's call a spade a spade.
He's locked in, Steve.
Yeah, he was doing pre-research on this. But,
I mean, he's probably, I'd imagine he's looked into it a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
So let's talk a little bit about his teams at Arkansas State. Now that we've kind of talked about him as a person, a really interesting background, as Steve mentioned. He does have one child and is engaged. She has a fiance, I believe, and they have a son together. He was born in 2024. So he'll be bringing a nice young family with him as well. But let's see. He inherited a team that lost 20 games and made their first postseason appearance since 1999. Set the program records for scoring and field goals made, and he was a finalist for the nation's top first year, the Joe B. Hall Award, which is the nation's top first year coach. And then this past year, had a top 20 victory, won the Sun Belt regular season title, and made the NIT for the first time in 30 years. Best offense in the conference, defense second in the conference. So, and the best recruiting class in the Sun Belt, which was ranked 35th in the country according to 24/7 Sports. So, 30, pretty good there at Arkansas State, 35th recruiting class. So,
and that's the other thing. None of those guys are like Jonesboro natives that he was recruiting to Arkansas State.
no.
Like, he got a 4-star out of Arizona to go to Arkansas State. Like, guy knows how to recruit pretty freaking well. I'll say that much.
I'm not super familiar with Jonesboro, Arkansas, so I can't say definitively, but I would think Tampa may maybe have a little bit more to offer a young man.
Potentially.
Depends on what they like. All right, so let's take a look at so that could be a lot of fun in terms of recruiting. So let's look at our good friend Ken Palm. So we'll look at and then we'll look at our new best friend, Bart Torvik, after that. But we'll start with old faithful Ken Palm. So this is kind of the look at Arkansas State here. Oh, I'm sorry, let's look at South Florida. Well, we can start there, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
this is a team he'll be inheriting.
The logo he's inheriting.
I'll be interested. I tell you what, though, will be interesting. So USF has had 3 players enter the portal so far: Reed, Brown, and Knox. Right?
Yep.
And I think this style of play could be enticing to them. So, yes. So this team was not very good. Ended up 196 in Ken Palm. Started the season very high. Defensively got better as the season went on, but still not very good. And you can see kind of a lot of red here, not much green, right? So I thought, being a Nate Oates guy, it was going to be very offensive heavy, right? For all, because when I hear Nate Oates, I think offense, right? But this has a somewhat good look at it, but I thought the Bart Torvik has a really good look at it. But you look at some of the on the defensive side here, some of the very high level numbers here. So effective field goal percentage defense was really high. It seems to me that looking at some of the stats, I'd imagine this guy's pretty analytically driven. That's just my guess, and I'll get to why I think that when we look at kind of Bart Torvik, which has some more shot data. But you see here, top 100 in both offense and defensive efficiency. Top 10 in the country in effective field goal percentage. They did not turn the ball over. They rebounded it pretty well. Then really good at defending. You see the 2-point percentage and the 3-point percentage here. But I thought the interesting part is, and you can look at this, so they finished in Ken Palm 84th. Why we were kind of we talked about last year's USF team. Finished, I think, 88th in Ken Palm, or 87th rather in Ken Palm. So top 100 offense and defense. So that was pretty similar. 43rd in effective field goal percentage. And then top 100 kind of in 3-point, 2-point percentage defense as well. So I thought his last year's team was somewhat similar to Amir's first, or Amir's USF team. It seemed to be similar in terms of production, and also similar in terms of some of the, both being top 100 offense, defense, adjusted efficiency. So someone interesting there. I thought this is why. So Brian Smith thought he was headed to UNLV. I think UNLV thought that as well. It turned out it did not.
Brian, I'll admit something that I'll put myself out there. Last Friday, I think it was last Friday, I, from a very well placed person within the USF circles, had told me keep an eye on the Nate Oates coaching tree. And so, for basically the entire weekend, for everything that I've been doing for the past 72 hours, I've been just researching Ryan Pannone nonstop. I already knew that. I figured he was the top candidate.
We talked a lot of Pannone in the Ponderosa last week.
Like that was it was the only natural fit that I could figure out from anything. And so I was all in. And then this came out of nowhere. And I even said in our Ponderosa probably 3 or 4 times, I'm fairly confident that USF is going to hire one of these 3 people that I had mentioned to them over and over again. And then I also said in the same breath, but I know I'm wrong. I know for a fact it's going to be someone out of left field that I didn't even think would be interested in the job. To the point earlier today, when that UNLV message came out, I said, and I quote, this is another one that I have seen a lot of people link to the USF job, and I have no idea why. So I'm an idiot.
So, and this is one that you kind of took off your radar just because it seemed like the UNLV stuff was a done deal. But alas,
all the research I've done is in the last. When did it get announced? I did no research on this guy. I
you looked at the you were shaking the oats tree, but passed this one up. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. So let's look at Bart Torvik has some more stylistic stuff. I think can give you maybe a better feel for how they play, not just kind of what the results were, but how they play a little bit. So this is his Arkansas State team here. Yes, we've unfortunately see there was a loss to Rice, so he'll feel right at home. Let's go again. Top 100 offensive defense adjusted for efficiency, 14th effective field goal percentage defense according to Bart Torvik. Again, good. Blah blah blah. So I thought this was interesting. Looking at 3-point rate, top 60 in the country in 3-point rate, 55th in adjusted tempo. So this is a team that's going to shoot a lot of threes. They're going to play a higher tempo, I think, right? Interestingly enough, I think this is his measure of like when you play really good teams, their defense was like really good. I don't know how many times they played, but their defense was a really, really good. You see here against Alabama earlier in the year, played pretty good defense against his old boss. So that was interesting. But this was, I thought, kind of the reason I say I think it would seem this guy's pretty analytically driven, right? What are the analytics in basketball saying now? You want to take shots at the rim and you want to take threes. You don't want to take mid-range jumpers, right? That's why the NBA mid-range jumper is dead. You go down to some of his players here, and we may talk through some of these guys because there's a few of them that got a lot of green here that would look nice, and I think you want to teach March Victorious too. But if you look at Bart Torvik's got really good, he's got shot data. So you can see how many of their attempts were dunks, how many of their attempts were close twos, which I'm assuming is at the rim. Then far twos is what I'm assuming is mid-range shots. So if you look at close twos, 950 attempts on close twos, 993 three-point attempts, only 287 mid-range jumpers. So to me, that says that he does not try to take those shots. So he's, for a reference, USF had 680 close two attempts this year, 416 far two or mid-range jumper attempts, and 804 three-point attempts this year. So you can kind of tell a little bit of the stylistic difference there. Or that was last year's team. Mm-hmm. 680 close twos, 804 threes, and 416 mid-rangers. So like even more extreme, it felt like the Mears team took a ton of threes. Arkansas State took like 100 more. So this year's team had 746 close twos, 687 threes, and 430 far twos. So Arkansas State had 993 three-point attempts. This year's USF team, 687. So that's a little different.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's not going to be a lot of step one foot inside the arc and let it rip. It's going to be stay outside and rip it or not. Steeg. One fun thing about hiring coaches now is that sometimes you get to pick up players. I have not been able to check and see the old transfer portal to see if any of these fellas are in it. But do any of these names stick out to you? Obviously, there's some seniors that played a lot of minutes for them, but there's a couple other guys that still have some eligibility left that seem to be pretty solid contributors. So, have you seen anything on the transfer portal, or the guys have caught your eye here?
I know the expression is the body's still warm. The body's still warm. Like let's be honest. Like to say that any of these kids are gonna come to USF, we don't know yet. Jury's still out. We don't know what the philosophy is gonna be here. However, the gentleman Joseph Pinion, in the 2.5 minutes we had to prepare for this, I looked up a few Arkansas State highlights to see.
He's the second name here. You see the old green looks pretty good.
Off the opening tip in their game against Texas State, he ripped a logo 3. Like the score bug wasn't even up yet, and he ripped a logo 3. And I'm like, all right, March victorious, get him on it.
Yeah, he looks. He'd be an interesting name. He's a junior. Yeah, it looks.
And none of these guys are going to be in the portal. Like
doesn't have anyone listed.
Yeah,
if you see one, you're hoping. What you're hoping is you're seeing a couple of these guys enter the portal with a no contact tag. There you go. It's perfect. Same. Lynchy F has checked it for us. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Or madam, I suppose. Probably sir if you're watching this, but we've got a whole cavalcade of people watching. So yeah, Pignon's an interesting one. Interesting enough, they have a Terrence Ford Jr. TJ Ford, who played at Texas, is Terrence Ford Sr., but there is a TJ Ford Jr. that plays at Incarnate Word, which I think is his son. So I don't think this Terrence Ford Jr. is his son, even though TJ Ford, who played at Texas and was a bad dude, is technically Terrence Ford Sr. I don't believe this is his junior. But another really good player. You see, if you look at his numbers, he's a 6'1" guard. There's a sophomore, played a ton of minutes for them, 75% of the minutes, and shot 40% from 3 for them. So interesting number. Pinion shot 36% on 228 attempts. And Steeg saw him ripping logo 3s. I think this is one that when you went and looked at, we talked about it when you went and someone looked at USF's numbers. Like Jaden Reed had really good. He ended up having on the season pretty good numbers from 3, but his numbers at the basket weren't great. This Pinion guy's 65% at the basket on close twos, so that's pretty good. Junior Isaiah Nelson.
He was third team All Sun Belt. Isaiah Nelson was. He's probably like the circle culture guy that you're probably gonna want. High offensive rating, but lower usage. But you can see his defensive rebounding rate's pretty high, block rate's pretty high. It seems like he might be probably a lob finisher type guy, and somebody that can kind of play at the basket and really set your defense up, because they were really good on defense. So I don't know. There's a lot that he had quite a few guys that I think could come make the jump with him, like you see now, that I think could come in and play immediately and be an impact players. But we'll see how that goes. It's always so hard to tell. Even Amir had guys that joined him the second year from his Kennesaw State team. So, right.
And then we'll see if anybody comes back. So USF's got 3 guys in the portal right now, but if this is an offense that's going to, get up and down and be aggressive, I'm not sure. I'd have to I haven't watched him play, so I don't know if they like press or anything like that on defense, or if they're just kind of really push the pace on offense. They're not like number one in the country in pace, but they are like, top 20-ish, 15%-ish on in pace. So it seems like, the thing during the Brian Gregory years was like, it's one thing to not be very good, but it's another thing to also play a really not entertaining brand of basketball.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do both, right?
Yeah.
So
you either got to be like, oh, you like rock fighting and winning those rock fights, or you just rip threes.
You can't just lose and also be. Now, sometimes these are very intertwined, but losing while also being like the worst free throw and 3-point shooting team in the country is not fun at all. So I think this style of play will at least be fun to watch, but this guy seems to have a really good track record of actually having success with it as well. So from that standpoint, I think it's a good hire. You never know how these things will work out, but seems to be a pretty good process in making the hire here.
Yeah,
and we'll see what the result is. But Steeg, any final thoughts here? We've been going about a half hour.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the out of left field hire that we've come to love and hate here at the Bay Area Examiner, where we work really hard to make hot boards and do a bunch of research, and then it gets announced that Michael Kelly's not using a search firm, and then all bets are off at that point. So I think there was a lot of restlessness over the last couple of days, especially seeing some of the other domino pieces fall around the country. There's no rush to hire a coach just when the portal starts. Like there's no difference in what's going to be happening over the next couple of days for him. He'll put together his staff, whether it's a continuity of his previous staff or what that's going to look like. He'll start reaching out to the portal. He'll get familiar with the city. He'll find a house. He'll have a short-term rental and then find a house or something like that.
That's a good point. Like, we talked about the portal, but it opened today.
Right.
So not only the impending increase of the buyout, but having a coach when the portal opens, I think is probably helpful. You didn't want to drag it out too long because, as we saw today, you have your own guys entering, but you don't want to get stuck because this is a sport where you can turn it over really quickly, and we've seen it happen, right? So if you get the right guys in, you can develop the pieces you have, you can turn things around fast. So we'll see if Bryan Hodgson is the guy that's able to do that. His track record says he's got a pretty good shot, but we shall see. Thank you guys for watching. We've had quite a few people joining us here live as we discuss this new hire. Thanks for checking us out. We'll be back later in the week with a regularly scheduled pod by the Bay. Steeg will be going to football practice tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
So we'll get his insights on that later in the week. Vanessa will be covering the press conference for us tomorrow, so we'll have that. Check us out in our Discord. We have Bay Area Examiner Discord, and we have a Ponderosa section of that Discord, which is an insider section. It's kind of our version of an insider message board for $5 a month. Anything we're hearing, we kind of throw it in there. It's about half of what others are charging for pretty much the same thing. So you get our version. Then for $10 a month, you get access to that and also extra podcasts every week. So I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit more about this hire in the Ponderosa later on this week, maybe trying to find some more in-depth stats to really break this thing down. But until then, Steeg, thank you guys for listening, and go Bulls.
Go Bulls.